interpolated tween versus frame-by-frame animation. So interpolation is just the process by which the computer is going to blend from one key position to another. If you look at this example here, what you're going to see is this little cone, this ice cream cone that's coming around. Notice that there's an arc, and each one of these is more or less a frame, these little dots. And so I might put a key position here of the ice cream, and then I put a key position here of the ice cream, and then I have it follow along this path, and then the computer itself will interpolate both the rotational and the positional data, right, of the transform of this drawing, and then it will blend in between each of those in order to create the frames that are necessary. So I don't have to draw every single frame, right? So that is what we say. Inside of Animate, they call it tweening, like in-betweening, if you're familiar with traditional animation. That's what they call it. So the other type of animation is frame by frame, and the idea here is that you draw every single frame of the animation. And that's more or less what you would see here. These are all new drawings, right? He's not being moved around. There's no transforms being completed in order for his motion to be done. It has to be manually drawn. Underneath, you'll see this example here where I'm going to talk about straight ahead or pose to pose. So straight ahead just means that these are much simpler actually. Straight ahead just means that you start creating you start drawing the animation on the first frame, and you draw the next frame, frame number 2, frame number 3, frame number 4, and you just go all the way through. So you just start at the beginning, and then you end at the end. There's some benefits to this because you end up with much more fluid and organic motion. It can also have a little bit of like an ad-lib sort of sense to it, which is beneficial. The problem with it that isn't very good is that you might end up having, your sequence was supposed to be 140 frames, but now it's 230 frames. So the length will kind of vary. You could also animate it and then, ends up not being very good, and then you have to redo it. It's not necessarily the best way. The other method of animating is what we call pose to pose. The idea here is you would create key poses. So you would draw your main poses. So for example, I might draw like the guy down here, then one up here, and then one down here. And then what I would do is I would draw the frames in between. So you draw all the main extreme poses when they are at the peak or the farthest out from where they're going to be. And then you draw every frame in between those frames. So that's called pose to pose, right? So you can see he's doing like a backflip here, right? So this is still frame by frame animation where I'm drawing every frame. But you can see like for here, I would just draw this one, draw the top one, draw the bottom one, and then I would draw the ones in between. I didn't finish this because there's only the main ones, but that's the idea. So the nice thing was when you do pose to pose is that you know exactly what you're getting. You can draw those main keys, and then you can say, oh, it's going to take this many frames. You know exactly what you're going to get. The only problem is it has the opposite issue where it's not going to be super organic, right? Sometimes it can be kind of almost mechanical. If you get good at it, you can make it not feel that way, but it's just another way of animating. So these are kind of like the two primary methods, particularly if you're doing hand-drawn animation. When I say hand-drawn, it doesn't necessarily have to be on paper. It could be on tablets, right? But when you're drawing every frame, these are the two primary methods.